Excellent!
Hey everyone, and welcome to Paul's Hardware. This video is a very, very special video, and I have a very, very special guest. This is Jay from JayzTwoCents.
Oh, you mean
look
me?
Around. Yes.
When you said special, so.
Well, I meant it, Jay. Because what I'm about to embark on is probably the most ambitious build project that I have done in my history of building computers. Which is because this is going to be an epic water-cooled build. So just to start from the beginning, going back quite a while, I had made a promise to my friend JJ over at ASUS that I was going to be using their X99 motherboard in an epic build. So we've got that over there, the X99 Deluxe from ASUS. That's going to be kind of the holding everything together. That's the motherboard. The CPU is going to be this one right here, i7-5930K from Intel. So it's a Haswell E socket 2011-3, and I'm really excited to see how that one performs.
What did you do with your 5960X? I'm curious.
The 5960X is in the test bed, so that's what I've been using to...
Seems like such a waste.
Benchmark. A waste? What are you talking about?
Seems like a waste. An epic water-cooled build deserves an epic CPU to
So you're saying I should swap and put the 5960X in this?
I personally would.
That could be an option. I could use a 5930K. And the 5960X that I have is actually a really nice overclocker.
You've got a nice bend.
Right now it's at 4.5 gigahertz on 1.2 volts.
Yeah, and to get 4.5 on mine, it's 1.325 volts.
So maybe that's a consideration. That's another thing that I want to do in this video, guys. So I'm going to be asking for your feedback. So here's the first bit of feedback. I have another really important question for you at the end of the video, so stick around for that. Should I stick with the 5930K or should I take Jay's advice and go with the 5960X?
It's one of those things where if you were out of pocket right now on it and you didn't already have them, I would say 5930, but since you have both.
I do have both.
Actually, you have all three, don't you?
I do have all three. I have a plan for the third one as well. So
yeah, because my test bench has the 5820K in it, but I think for the test bench purposes, that was a perfect CPU for it.
Yeah. Don't need too much.
5960X, I think, given the hardware you're going to talk about right now, is definitely the right choice.
All right, we're already making changes, but I'm excited about that. That makes it an even more epic build.
That's why I'm here. I'm shake the tree, see what falls out.
Nice. All right, let's go over the rest. So I need to say a huge thank you to G.Skill because they sent me over my memory kit. Since this system is going to be used extensively for video editing, I needed lots of memory. 32 gigs is, in my opinion, the good amount of memory to go for.
That's more than I have, actually. I'm a little jealous.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I've always just had 16 gigs.
Just 16? Well, I will say for video editing, 32 is really nice. I mean, depending on the complexity of the project that you're working with and everything. But this is 2400 speed memory from G.Skill, Ripjaws 4. It's the black version that Jay has also used.
Same one I'm using in Skunkworks, only you have the 8 gigabyte DIMMs where I have the 4 gigabyte DIMMs.
Yes, and I think yours are a bit faster than this, but I think 2400 for my purposes.
No, mine's 24.
Oh, yours is 2400 too?
And I'm running them at 2666.
Oh,
not even overclocked much at all.
Nice. Well, excellent. This has been excellent memory. I've been using the Ripjaws 4 in the test bed as well. I have a 16 gig kit over there. So huge thank you to G.Skill for that. And I think I'm going to do the same thing you did, Jay, and pull the stickers off of there.
Yeah.
Just to keep everything, because this is going to be a black and white themed build. So there's my memory. For storage, I have Samsung's new SSD. This is the 850 EVO that they sent over. So this is a 250 gig. The operating system is going to go on here. I'm going to be expanding the storage in this system, but I'm probably going to do that after the whole thing's built, since that's something you actually can upgrade with a water-cooled system after the fact.
Yeah, and you don't even need a huge SSD. I mean, I have a 500 gig and a 256 in mine.
Mm-hmm.
I just put my favorite games on the 256. The 500 gig was barely being touched, but you do have more standard hard drive storage than I do. I have a 2 terabyte and a 1 terabyte.
So this is so I have a thing about raw footage. Whenever I record something and then I copy it, because right now I'm not recording straight to a computer, but whenever I copy my raw footage, I have a thing, I want to always copy it to a RAID 1 array. Just because that's something that's irreplaceable. I can go and recreate a Premiere project or something like that. But this is a 4 terabyte WD black drive. This is actually stand-in right now because what I'm going to be using is the 2 4 terabyte WD black drives that I have in my system that I'm using right now as my primary system. So those will be migrated over. And then I also have a 500 gig dual SSD RAID 0 array that I edit off of, that I copy the raw footage to my mechanical drives, and then copy it again to the SSDs, and then I edit off of there. So that's kind of
you can do all that in in the case you're going to use. I'll let you talk about the case, but
Yes.
that's the downside of the Case Labs case, is it's not really designed for natively supporting a lot of hard drives.
I see.
Two optical hard drives, or optical hard drives,
optical.
yeah. 2 hard drives and 4 SSDs is the support.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
unless you buy additional hard drive cages, which go in the main part and are ugly, which takes away room for the water cooling setup, I just am gimped on hard drive capability in that case. So the case you're using is obviously meant for that.
The case. So excellent segue, Jay. Thank you. Over to the case. So this is the case, and this was a question that I asked you guys. So this is the Fractal Define R5 mid-tower computer case. Really, really well received so far. It launched at the end of 2014.
Yeah.
And
Actually, it was so well received. There were some people that thought that Fractal bought those reviews because...
Really?
No, I saw some comments of like, why is every single reviewer calling this like the best case at the price point period? Because it is.
Because if you look at the Fractal Define R4, which is hugely popular, and there were some things people said, hey, if you did this, the Define R4 would be like just balls to the wall excellent.
And they did it.
And this is what they did with the Define R5. So as a promise to you guys, everyone said, I had a lot of suggestions for that, but I had a lot of people said, go for it, epic water cooling build in the Define R5. So that's what we're using for the case. The power supply, I'm actually also going to be using a Fractal Newton, I think 1,000 watt is what I'm going for that. That hasn't arrived yet, but that will also be here for the power supply. So big thanks to Fractal for those. And then lastly, the parts I had been waiting on just so I could do this video, because we're going to be going over the water cooling stuff here pretty soon, is the graphics cards. Now, I knew I wanted GTX 980s because they're kind of the newest and fastest GPUs that are out there.
You GPU snob.
Well, that's always my opinion when you're going for custom water cooling. I feel like you should already have
Right.
the top things, and then you want to push it beyond that.
Right, and we'll talk about that, the water cooling
Yes.
part.
So we're gonna do a little pro and cons here in just a second. So these are the Gigabyte G1 Gaming Windforce Edition GTX 980s, and these things are absolute monsters.
They are. The fact they're so heavy, you would think there was already water blocks on them.
Yeah, it's got a massive copper. So let's just move into the next section. All right, so Gigabyte G1 Gaming GTX 980s. 2 of these I'm going to be going for a 2-way SLI configuration with the 980s, and these are going to be water cooled with EK water cooling components.
Right. Which are solid copper.
Oh yes.
They have nickel version and copper versions.
And that's a big reason why I invited Jay over here, was because the water cooling side of it is something that I admittedly have not delved into a whole lot. So let's go on to section 2 of this video.
And I'm sad to admit I probably have every water cooling SKU memorized on the market.
Which I do not. So I'm glad you're here, Jay, to help out for this particular aspect. So let's talk about water cooling. Let's talk not about your all-in-one loops that are very accessible and easy
Right.
to find these days. Let's talk about custom, full-blown, individual water cooling where you have a reservoir, you've got a block on the CPU, you've got a block on the GPU, you're looping them all together, you're building it yourself and deciding where each component should go and how the loop should run and what radiators to use and all that good stuff.
Right.
Now, I have not done this very much, and here are my reasons.
Have you done it at all, honestly?
I've done it, yes.
Okay.
What I haven't done is built for myself a full water-cooled system. I've never done that. I've done, of course, the minor water cooling with all-in-one loops, and I have set up custom loops for testing, like the ASUS Poseidon graphics card. I set up a little basic loop for that. So I'm familiar with it, and I've set it up, and I've helped other people with water cooling builds, but I don't have that breadth of experience where I've done it many, many times in the past. Excuse me. So
you just throw up a little in your
I burped. I kind of burped there.
I was like, are you scared?
But I recovered.
It is a scary thought, and it does seem overwhelming.
It is.
When your first personal build is going to be an extreme build like this, which you kind of have almost no limit on what you can do.
I know.
And that's a scary thought.
It's a scary thought. So the reasons I haven't done water cooling in the past, and then I'm going to ask Jay to tell the reasons he has, because I think there's a lot of reasons on both sides, and it depends kind of who you are and where you're at in the industry. But the reasons I haven't is because, to my mind, it's a heavy investment. A full custom loop is probably going to run you $300-400 minimum.
Oh, if you went with basics and only wanted
if you're
CPU.
if you're going for really, really simple
for just the CPU.
But for just CPU, but if you want to go beyond that, you're probably talking $600-700-800
at least.
And fittings and all that stuff.
Like Skunkworks, for instance, even if it were a 2-way config, because it's 3-way, which each graphics card block is going to run you $120 around thereabouts, plus the backplate. If you're going to do a backplate, it's another $30. and you got two of them, so you're talking $250+ just for GPU.
Yeah.
And that doesn't include fittings or pipes or any of that. And that's just that.
So it's substantial. And to my mind, I've always shopped for computer parts with a very like kind of frugal viewpoint. And to my mind, I'm like, well, after you drop all that stuff in, after you overclock your CPU and your GPU, because that's really where you're getting the benefit is the overclocking, and also possibly the noise performance if you're going for a very silent type of build.
I have a feeling this is going to be a long video, guys, so strap in.
That's all right.
It's going to be okay. It's going to be like a podcast.
I like these types of discussions, but
I'm like 3D printing discussions with Jerry, man. I can go all day. We're water cooling.
Oh wow, that's another video entirely. But it's never made that much sense to me to invest that amount of money for the performance improvement you get, where if you're already running top level components, you're going to get what, maybe another 10-15%.
Well, with the 980s, it's not going to help your max overclock really much, if at all.
Okay.
You might get 5% on top of where you are going to be with these coolers,
especially with these coolers.
So the cost to performance ratio of your water cooling loop at this hardware, where you are now, is probably going to be way upside down.
Yeah.
It's not going to make sense. But really, it comes down to you have the best hardware and you kind of want to take it to that next level. But yeah, that is one of the cons of water cooling, is the cost to investment on return for performance is a little bit upside down.
So if you're looking at this strictly from an ROI perspective,
it's terrible.
It's not that great. And then the other thing that comes to mind, and that's literally only because we have these Gigabyte G1 gaming graphics cards, is I feel like the graphics cards that you want to water cool and are the ones that have the nicest freaking coolers on them by default.
Right.
Because the companies that
they put a lot of effort.
They build their own PCB. They do special stuff with the power delivery and everything like that.
Backplates.
And then they overbuild it. They drop a backplate in there.
Yes,
very nice backplate. And then they have this epic cooler on here, which if you're just dropping this in a system is fantastic. This is what, a 300. No, this one's even more. This one's 450, right?
It's near 500 watts dissipation.
So the amount of heat dissipation this cooler has is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
But what we're going to do when we water cool is take that off and not use it.
But it makes a good display
all.
piece somewhere.
It does, actually. I have the R9290Xs, just the coolers up back there, so they do look nice.
But just to kind of end on that point of return on investment is where I started with water cooling. The whole reason it existed was the hardware at the time was incredibly hot. I mean, they had made some amazing advancements in technology when it comes to TDP and heat, generated inside the components. And you had to water cool to get to the next level because you were hitting thermal caps before you ever hit, performance or voltage limits. So as those progressions have advanced and evolved over time, over the last, let's say 10 or 12 years I've been doing it, it's started to make even less sense because you can get the same performance out of air as you could at the time with water.
So that makes perfect sense, especially if we go back to like Pentium 4 days, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
those
and like the GTX and the GTX 8800 Ultras,
8800, GTX 400 series.
The 400 series was notoriously just a furnace.
Good lord.
Yeah.
So those are some more benefits that you might have had if you go back a few years in the industry. But obviously I'm doing this build, so the cons I've mentioned just now I was able to get over. So let's talk about the pros now.
There's a lot of pros.
Now, obviously, keeping your components cooler could potentially extend their lifespan. I think that's a benefit. The noise factor, I think, is one that originally I was like, oh, build a water-cooled system. You don't need any... This was like way back.
Yeah.
It's like you don't need any fans to cool it, and then it's completely silent. Well, you still need fans.
Right.
But by taking the heat that's being generated by your GPU and CPU, moving them to a big radiator, you can have large fans that don't need to spin too fast, and you can get a quieter running system if that's what you're going for.
Or you can add more radiator space for larger surface area and go with super slow fans like 500, 600 RPMs.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
That's another benefit.
I think I'm going to lean towards making this a nice quiet system. I think that's going to be cool. Of course, with the performance in there as well. Now, I think the number one reason, though, when it comes down to like if you're going to do a system like this today, right now, with current generation hardware, is just like for the love of DIY.
It's an enthusiast thing.
It's an enthusiast thing. It's your hobby.
You mentioned asking why I do it. It's an enthusiast thing. I'm going to tell you a quick story of my very first time really dealing with, or really starting to get into water cooling.
Okay, I like stories.
It involved Alienware.
Oh,
I actually owned 4 Alienware computers.
pre Best Buy, right?
Oh, pre-Dell, pre all that. We're talking like when Alienware was a startup.
When they were like hot.
Yeah, I mean, I had already dealt with some water cooling stuff before, with fish pump, aquarium pumps, and vinyl tubing from Home Depot, and
I've used that before.
Yeah, and trying to make your own copper blocks and stuff. Mm-hmm. It was fun, but I had gotten an Alienware desktop that had an all-in-one cooler in it that had leaked on me, and so I decided, well, at that point, I'm just going to go ahead and go balls to the wall. I'm going to build something custom, and it all started there. I mean, this was 2003, 2004, somewhere along those lines. So that's why I said I'm going on 12 years now, having not owned an air-cooled system since then.
Wow.
So it's one of those things where once you do it, it kind of becomes your own personal expectations for your builds, and so you always plan for that. If I couldn't afford to do the water cooling at the time of build, I waited. I didn't do I'm going to build it as air first, and then I'm going to convert it later. Mm-hmm. I just did it all from day one. But it's purely an enthusiast thing, purely.
So, and that's where I think a lot of the community, when it comes to building your own PC, has really kind of gravitated towards, is because building your own PC, it's not as popular as it used to be, because it's not as much, again, as a value proposition. I originally got into building my own computers because if you looked at the pre-built ones and you looked at how much you could build your own computer for, you could save $250.
Right, but that doesn't really exist
at the time. That's not the case anymore. You can buy a pre-built computer and you can pretty much part out your own computer the same, and they'll be roughly the same. And get a warranty. So that's our quick introduction. I hope you guys have enjoyed us rambling on about water cooling here for a while, but that's kind of some of the pros, some of the cons. I wanted to give both sides of it here since we're just starting out on this project.
There's definitely more pros and cons.
There are more. We could go on, but I think for the
I can nutshell it though.
Okay.
Give me 2 more minutes.
All right, Jay's going to nutshell.
Pros. Potential leaking. Maintenance. It's not maintenance free.
Cons. These are cons, right?
I'm sorry, yes.
Okay.
These are the good cons. No, I don't know. Okay, they're cons. Maintenance, they could possibly leak. Mm-hmm. ROI is terrible. Mm-hmm. Those have kind of always been the main 3. There's more work involved in the setup.
And you lose
warranty on the cards when you take the cards apart. The pros, though, is you can build a silent PC. Mm-hmm. You do get tons of thermal overhead, better overclocking. Really, it looks awesome. It really does, especially if you put time into your loop.
Oh, yeah.
If you go something like acrylic, there's more time invested, but it just looks amazing. The con to acrylic is you cannot easily maintain your system in terms of swapping out parts.
Not quite as flexible as the flexible.
Yeah, there's no. I see what you did there.
Yeah,
I got that. Okay. But really, in the end, when it's all done and put together, you're going to look at it, and you're going to enjoy looking at your PC as much as you do whatever you do on your PC.
I do. I enjoy looking at Jay's computer.
That's become the game for me, though, right? The game for me now is the building. It's the customizing. That's my game. And I build these systems, and then I don't game on them as much as I should, because I'll be gaming on it, and I'll just be looking at the system going, you know what? That little thing is bugging me. Yeah. So I'm going to redo, like, the cables. Right? I just did all the custom cables, and they're custom sleeved cables that were done by Sanctum Sleeving. And everyone's like, well, that just seems like a terrible waste. But that's a perspective thing. That's a subjective thing, and that's what I like doing. And I think you might be starting something here that you might not be able to put a lid on once you start doing it.
This is my gateway drug. I'm going to have to constantly be building and upgrading and all of that good stuff, which I'm okay with. And I actually will say that the potential that we're seeing here, like the kind of just started build or the midway build, like, I really like that. Yeah. And I think I'm kind of like with you, where the completed build, once it's there and it's sitting there and it sits there for a while and you play on it and like, oh, this is awesome, it's really fast. And then time goes by and you start looking at it and like, I could do more or something like that.
Well, I'm getting ready, I'm planning to redo all of the acrylic tubing in my system again.
Well, I hope you'll do a video on that.
Oh, there'll probably be a series.
All right,
and
good.
It all comes down to that stupid little bend that showed its way into the build because of moving from Z97 to X99, and it was off by a half centimeter.
Oh, that bend!
Because of the way that the pass-through fittings are drilled. So,
well, I'm sure it'll be epic once you're all finished. All right, so we have 2 more things to talk about on this video, and one is going to be the actual water cooling parts, which obviously aren't here right now, but we're actually going to be picking those out now that we have the graphics cards chosen and we know the rest of the components of the build. We can kind of plan where everything's going to go and then define our 5. what we're going to need as far as the GPU blocks, CPU blocks, fittings, and all that good stuff. So we're going to pull up the EK website here, and then I still have one important question for you guys at the end of this video. So
it's going to be a check yes or no, I'm sure.
No, it's an important question. All right.
Oh.
So we're taking a look at the EK water blocks, EKWB website. Jay is here, my trusted assistant. I trust him implicitly with everything. Advice and looking at me funny, Jay. But anyway, we're EK web just failing at talking.
We make videos for livings.
I'm gonna go ahead and click on the online store right over here, and let's take a look at what they got going on. So we have so what are we gonna need here? We talked earlier, not on camera, but mind you, we talked about the parts of a computer being like case, power supply, motherboard, CPU, memory, graphics card, storage, and then optical drive, which is kind of more of an option at this point. What are the primary components going into a water cooling loop?
Okay, well, you've got your CPU. Okay, guaranteed needed parts: CPU block,
okay,
fittings, tubing, pump, reservoir, radiator. So there's 6 main components that you need.
Okay.
Okay, 7 if you include fluid, but that's kind of a given.
All right.
And then optional stuff obviously would be GPU blocks, any other blocks might do like motherboard blocks or RAM blocks, which are like tiers on tiers on tiers, which aren't that important.
Yeah.
But in your case, you're going to need the 8, right? Including fluid, you'll need the 8 components, which are going to be the GPU blocks as well as the the fluids.
Okay, so should we start with some water blocks over here?
That would be a good place to start.
All right.
And
now
EK's got quite the range because they've got 3 different main types of blocks.
Okay.
Definitely you're going to want to go for, so do CPU block first.
All right, let's take a look at that.
That's a given. You're going to want to go with the Supremacy Evo. That's their top end block right there.
Supremacy
if you want
Evo.
just no holds barred.
Well, what else? What else would we want?
Now by default they all come installed with the Intel bracket.
Okay.
Which is obviously what you want. But they've got a lot of different materials. They've got white. You can see they've got kind of a white acrylic, or not acrylic, it's a palm type of material going on.
Okay.
And then they've got like what I have on my test bench, which is like a full nickel one, which looks really sick.
Ooh, nice.
So if you're doing a black and white build though, I would recommend probably either doing the white, which would look really good on that X99 Deluxe.
That would.
Or the solid black, the clean version. Now, what you're going to notice is 2 variants of block.
Okay.
In that there's a nickel block and a copper block.
Mm-hmm.
For CPU, I personally always do copper. That way, the nickel doesn't affect temperatures at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly an aesthetic thing, but you don't see it. And it's nice to get that direct copper contact.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than going through thin micro.
So the nickel is actually plating on the copper that goes into contact
It's
with
still
the CPU.
copper based.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I personally always do copper blocks because you can't see the block from the perspective you're looking at it.
So if I wanted black, that would be this one here without the nickel. The Evo acetal.
Right. It's always going to be copper unless it says nickel.
Okay, and then we also got the white edition. So
right. The white edition has a silver bracket, like a nickel bracket, with the white, like a palm material.
Okay.
And then you've got some colored options or cleared, which are just aesthetics.
Yeah, I think I kind of want to go with the solid, but I'm thinking, I feel like white.
I think the white would look good on that.
I think the white would
ASUS.
look nice because there's a lot of black going on in the case already, and I think the
Right.
white would stand out a little bit more.
Right.
So there's a look at it there. You can zoom in on the site and everything and look at it closer. Although I guess I should use the slider. It's very very smooth.
Now the nice thing about the block that I have though, if you kind of wanted to go with bling, is the full nickel block.
Okay.
It's not an acetal material.
Okay.
It's actually metal, so there's no chance of thripping the threads.
Ah.
There's no chance of stripping them.
Okay.
Now, threads are fittings you just want to put on hand tight plus like a little bit of a turn.
Okay.
So you shouldn't be cranking them down with a tool anyway.
All right. Well, oh look, they even have the hydraulic characteristics listed here.
They do, but
Excellent.
even though I trust EK, I still would never just trust a manufacturer's chart.
Yeah.
Always look at independent reviewers' testing
That's a good
results.
call. All right, so there's
Kind of like fan specs, right?
Yeah.
You look at manufacturers on fan specs, and they're like the quietest, most air-flowing fan in the world.
Yes, they're always the best. That and contrast ratio on monitors. I'm always
Well, I guess
a
that's
fan of.
another thing you technically need is fans, but
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the fans. Actually, that's a good question. All right, we'll look into that.
you have 100,000 fans actually.
I do. Hi Everyone.
Hi, all of it. Okay, hi,
Nice.
Billy, Bobby, Joe.
Just list them all. List them all. All right, now the thing we're moving over to GPU blocks now, and I know exactly which GPU block we're going to get.
Because you only have one choice.
Because there's only one choice, and it just came out. Now, this is an important distinction to make when you're looking at GPU blocks for water cooling, which is any graphics card that comes out is going to have what's known as a reference design that's created by NVIDIA or AMD. And those are often what the GPU block manufacturers will come out with first, right? Because they have the widest array of...
that's the sample they get first. Some companies like EK actually have very good reputations and relationships with the board designers like NVIDIA and AMD. So oftentimes they'll get an engineering sample first so that they can offer either day one or month one options, which I know was the case for the 960s and such.
Okay.
So yeah, reference designs are always going to come out first. One-off board partner PCBs like the Strix or the DCU2 or the Gigabyte G1 Gaming, those always take time to develop because EK has to either request or buy the blocks and then do all of the research and tooling and manufacturing.
And they gotta vet them all and install them and make sure that they're keeping all the different components cool and that sort of thing. Let's do a...
And those blocks are actually manufactured down to like micron, well maybe not microns, but super, super accurate because the last thing you want is to crank down your block and have it squish your heat spreader on your GPU, which will crush your die.
Oh, yeah, you don't want that.
In fact, you cannot. It is impossible to over-tighten an EK water block and damage your graphics card because the threads literally stop on the screws and the female screw ports without damaging your card. So you could crank it down. You'll strip it out before you damage your GPU.
Now, I think, because I've been looking for the proper water block on here, and I think it's actually not listed on their store yet. It just came out, I think, like the first week of
it's like just before
January.
CES.
So this is the water block they did for the GTX 980 gaming.
The G1.
The gaming G1. So they have it in nickel. Oh, so they do have a few variants of it.
They're going to have a full cover block, which is like the black one you're seeing there, and then they have a partial, which is not a full. Well, it's still okay. Let's talk about real quick. Difference between full cover and not full cover.
Okay.
Full cover means it touches the GPU, the RAM, and the VRMs. That's a full cover. Some people think full cover means it has to go from end to end.
It needs to cover the entire PCB.
Right.
Yeah.
Full cover just means you're covering all of the heat generating components with the block.
Okay.
Then as you can see, you have the clear nickel version, which is shorter. Now the reason why some people do that, and they have a black one usually in most cases, it's lighter.
Okay.
Once you put that solid cover on, which my 980s have, especially if you put a backplate too, they are heavy.
You're going to be dealing with a lot of additional weight.
They are super heavy. So as you can see, that just you have some of the plexi there, which is giving you some aesthetic overhang from the block itself. But that block is going to be considerably lighter than say that one.
And this is the one I think we're going to be going with, which is full cover.
But I love the clean look of
Yeah,
this.
it's super clean, nice black finish. You just got a little bit of EK logoing going on right there.
Right.
And
then the screws that hold it down onto the block.
So, which is purely, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I love the super clean look.
So that's going to be the GPU block, and then we have some other choices to make.
An option with that is backplates. Are you going to do a backplate?
That's a good question. Now,
because I don't think the G1 gaming backplates are going to work with that.
Oh, so they wouldn't. It wouldn't. So we wouldn't need.
They're designed. Well, these blocks are designed. In fact, you should check it and see if it mentions it. The design of their threading, like I mentioned, is specific to their block, so that you don't over tighten.
Okay.
So technically, you could potentially over tighten it by not having the screws go all the way through because of the backplate.
All right, so we want to make sure that now, since the 980 full cover block isn't listed on the store yet, I'm guessing.
You mean the G1 gaming?
Yeah, I'm sorry, G1 gaming block isn't listed on the store yet. I'm guessing
they will have a backplate.
So they will have a backplate. So we might not be able to show you guys that right now.
And usually the backplate options for EK are solid black. They call it the jet stream.
Okay.
I believe they call it jet stream. It's like a solid black, which has a real nice brushed effect in it, which my blocks have, or my backplates. But usually they have a nickel one, as you can see right there. They have nickel, blue, red, yellow. So that's why I asked. The nickel looks really good if it's blingy. I kind of wish they had done a white powder-coated version, honestly.
That would be cool.
Because they didn't even offer nickel backplates or any of that until the Deluxe Hall of Fame cards became popular.
Oh, yeah.
Then they needed a white option to go with white PCBs.
That's the funny thing, because of all the video cards with backplates that I've seen, the Deluxe ones that have the white PCB is the one where I'm like, you could go without a black backplate on that. All the extra money they invest to get that, pure white PCB. It's like,
is that it right there?
I think this is it. WinForce 3 backplate. So there's the backplate that we're going to go with. Again, very clean look and very, very straightforward. Just got the EK logo down there.
No, there's a lot of discussion about backplates, and there's a reason why I put backplates on there. Yeah, everyone knows I'm a stickler for backplates. I always get a little bit, anal when companies don't put backplates on high-end cards.
Yeah.
It's an aesthetic thing, and also, if you developed a drip somewhere, say your CPU block or your radiator or something, and it drips down on the back of those cards, the backplate will give you some protection.
So you get some more protection.
That's part of it.
That's a very practical. I like when something maybe is a little aesthetic benefit, but then when it actually has some practicality added there too.
If you go look on forums and things of people who've had water cooling catastrophes, they always end up losing GPU because it drips on the GPU.
Yeah, that's terrible. That's a terrible thing to lose as well.
Right.
All right, so there's our backplate. Moving right along, we're going to need a pump or a reservoir. What should we go for next?
Well, they actually have combo units too.
Well.
Which are... There's a lot of options now. A lot of companies have found that in order to make them fit in cases more friendly, there are pump reservoir combos.
So they'll take the vertical one with the tube, and then the pump sits at the bottom.
Right. Which would be more like the Lang DDC style pump.
Okay.
Which is a much smaller pump, typically much more noisy though. Then you have the Lang D5 pump. Which is the bigger, heavy-duty, like monstrous pump, but usually variable speed and much quieter at lower RPMs.
I see. I want quiet, so maybe that would be a good way to go.
Now EK personally only offers reservoir pump combos that are based on. Actually, no, they actually do have the D5 series. I take that back.
EK D5.
Yeah. So, but the only thing I don't like about those personally is the reservoirs are only the small versions.
Okay.
They don't have, say, the 200 millimeter reservoir. I like a big res because it makes it easier to bleed and fill the system.
Okay. So, in that case, should we go with a separate then, not a combo? A consideration at this point is going to be like where in the case is the pump,
right? And how many of those hard drive cages you can have installed? That's the other thing.
Well, I think I can get away with just the lower one, or possibly even just hanging the one from the top. That would probably be okay, because I'm not going to have more than two.
You also have to keep in mind your radiator placement. You're going to have a top rad and a front rad, because if you do that, in that case, you can only do a 360 and a 240 in the front. Especially if you're going to do a 360 on the top, I think you might lose the top mount option for the hard drives.
I think you're right. It's a good question.
This is the part that makes water cooling a PC kind of a pain in the ass. Sometimes you think you got it all figured out, and the parts come, and you start the build, and you realize you didn't have it all figured out.
You have to go back to the drawing board and figure something out. So, let's just check in here. Yeah, it'll all fit.
There you go. Scientific way of checking.
So, in that case, where would you go from this point? Would you be taking the case apart and measuring things, or would you just kind of ballpark it?
Everything I've ever done has been ballparking.
Ballparking?
I'll admit
that.
That.
I like that. Though.
I've never busted out a measuring tape.
I like to shoot from the hip. All right, so in that case, because we want a taller reservoir, right?
No, there is an option that you can do with these. You can make your own. You go back to the reservoir combos.
Okay. Actually, where did I put? Oh, here we go.
And then look at the EKD5 series.
Okay.
And let's say the middle one right there with the 140D5.
All right.
I still think this would probably be your best option. But this one here is just the reservoir. You have to actually add the pump. If you look at the other pictures, you'll see that you have to thread the pump into it.
Okay.
But that still might be your best option in terms of compact and function.
That's cool with me.
For this case, because you're not going to use the optical bays in this thing, because you're going to do a 360 rad in the top at minimum.
Yeah. Okay. So something like this, it'll fit in there. It won't take up too much space, and we could probably fit that in beneath hard drive cage, or maybe you ever mount something on top of a hard drive cage.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, that's a possibility as well. All right. So. And
you might even have room too still between the motherboard and the cages, although the way that the motherboard tray on this case kind of tapers, that was the one drawback I didn't like about the R5, was the recessed motherboard tray. Yeah, it's convenient in some situations, but inconvenient in others.
Right. Definitely. All right, so that's a good one. I like that. And you said the D5 is the pump that you like as far as
I like the D5.
power and noise generation.
Right.
Okay. So let's go over to radiators, shall we?
It's funny, the DDC, the smaller pump, actually has higher flow rate,
Okay.
but the D5 has higher head pressure,
I see.
which you're going to want higher head pressure when you have all these blocks.
So that we get...
It's kind of like the horsepower versus torque conversation in cars.
I
D5 is like the V8, and the DDC is like a turbo import.
Okay. So we want torque.
Yes,
right?
we do. And with all of this restriction you're going to have, yes.
Cool. All right. So that's block. That's reservoir and pump. Radiators.
Yep.
All right. Let's take a look at that. And here we want a 360 for the top.
Mm-hmm.
And you think we should go dual radiators here?
You're going to have to because you have two graphics cards.
All right. So
and a single 360, even a thick rad, would not be...
Not going to be enough?
Right.
All right. So for 360, we have the Cool Stream.
The
right
XTX.
Here. XTX?
The XTX, you could fit that up top here. If you click on it, it's a very thick radiator.
rad.
It's like
Okay.
a 60 mil rad.
That's really thick.
It's double thick compared to standard rads.
Oh, wow.
So on that one there, you would have to use the built-in offset mount in here. But I don't know how that's going to affect your front radiator with hard drive capability.
Yeah, that's another possibility. So why don't we... I'm thinking, especially since we're doing two radiators, it can probably get away with not the XTX, not the thick one.
Yeah.
Your
battery's red now.
Oh, yeah. So we should probably wrap this up. All right, so we got the Coolstream WE360 right
now,
there.
I would be confident in you using the EK Coolstreams.
Okay.
They have higher fin density, so it gives you more dissipation. They're 30 mil thickness. And I would personally be comfortable using... That's... looks like the dual...
Oh, wait. I thought
that's the wrong red.
I thought I clicked on the 360. It's a
360
dual. Oops.
Yeah. So that's going to be like the two 180 millimeter.
Oh, oopsie.
Yeah, they're adding more sizes to this lineup, and they do have more stuff coming. So there you go. So I would feel confident using a triple one of these coupled with a 240 version.
Okay, that works. So we'll have a 360 and a 240. We're going to do the 360 in the top, 240 in the front.
Right.
That'll give us plenty of
And
I was about to say areal density, but that refers to hard drives. I meant to say fin density or surface area.
Surface area,
that's what we're looking for.
With higher fin density radiators, though, you typically need a higher static pressure fan.
Mm-hmm.
But EK has a really good design on that radiator. I did a review of it where you can still run low speed fans, like say the NBE loop fans, and get a ton of airflow through it.
Nice. Well, that's good. So I think we'll go with that for the radiators. And then lastly, we have accessories. It's going to be fittings.
Fittings, tubing.
And tubing and all that kind of thing.
Fans will be in there.
All right. So, and the... fans are also in here. So EK has
basically
fans.
EK's fans are Gelid fans.
Oh, okay. I like
and they do, but if you look, they have a new fan. Do you remember the ever popular Gentle Typhoons?
Oh, yes. I have some of those.
They basically brought them back.
Oh, beautiful. I really, really like those fans.
They brought them back all the way from like 1,200 RPM up to 3,000 RPM variants.
Yeah, I have a couple of the 1,800 RPM versions of
and
that.
Guess what?
They're beautiful.
They made black ones.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Guess who's going to be doing a review?
I think I might need to get some of those then.
Yeah.
All right, so tubing size. Where are we going? 1/2 inch? It's a little wide. What do you like, 3/4?
If I'm doing soft tubing, I do like the 1/2 inch.
Okay.
Because it offers less restriction over the length of the loop.
But we're gonna probably do acrylic, right?
If you want to do acrylic, yeah, it's gonna be small. It's gonna be like 13 millimeter.
Oh, okay.
It'll be very small. That's a misconception we can put to bed right now, guys. Tubing size, in terms of computer builds, does not affect performance or cooling capacity whatsoever.
So thicker tubing does not equate to better cooling.
Yeah.
But all right.
And we're talking about computers, guys.
Of course, computers.
Yeah.
All right. So then, in that case,
but my test bench is running 3/8.
Okay. All right.
Just fine.
So 3/8 inner diameter, right?
Yeah. The only hard part about is you're dealing with like standard versus metric now. Like you're looking at a site that's out in Slovenia.
Oh yeah.
So they're very into the millimeters. Which
I'm cool with that.
So I still have never memorized all of that stuff.
All right, and we have nickel, black nickel, and then we got all black.
Yeah, but that's for soft tubing. Are you gonna do soft tubing or acrylic?
No, I'm doing acrylic tubing.
Yeah, then chances are
I knew that.
Chances are I don't know if they even have. I know they sell their own line of acrylic tubing. I don't know if they have the fittings. You have to check them out.
Oh, okay.
But Primo Chill is still kind of my go-to brand for acrylic fittings.
Okay.
They've got their revolver fittings double O-ringed on there. Ooh. They're actually really, really good.
All right, so we might need to diversify our opportunities here when it comes to the fittings.
Because all the fittings they're showing there are soft tubing.
These are all soft tubing compression fittings.
Right.
Cool.
Oh, no, they're right there. Hard rigid connectors.
Hard tubing connectors. Oh, look, these have colors too.
And these are also compressions.
Okay.
Now the HD adapters, those are basically their built-in like SLI bridge between motherboard. Between graphics cards.
Okay.
Kind of like they're very similar to like the Bits Power ones.
Oh, nice.
Like the Crystal Links. You can go ahead and get out of. Oh no, you're in the right section. You'll want to definitely go with get out of HD adapters and go to the rigid connector.
Here?
HDC. Yeah, they call it their hard line something another.
Hard.
Yeah. But yeah, so there you go. You can get those, and they will actually screw down, and the O-ring will compress as you tighten it, and it will keep the tube secure.
Okay.
And it will be leak free.
Beautiful.
The original rigid tubing stuff could easily, under pressure, pop out.
Oh.
Because there was nothing holding it in; it just pressure fit.
Yeah.
So they've come a long way on that, and they do offer white, which would probably look really good.
Okay. So we got white finish fittings available in here. So we need to get a set of these to match all the fittings that we need.
Now you've got 12 millimeter by G quarter threads, right?
Okay.
G quarter thread is the standard threading you'll find in all your blocks.
Mm-hmm.
Some European companies like Alpha Cool like to do also a G3/8, which is bigger. It's not compatible with most components.
Okay.
But I see 12 millimeter. See if they have any 13 millimeter.
I see 12 and 16.
Yeah, so you might end up going with another brand for the fittings. And the reason why I say that, and I love EK, they're just starting to get into rigid stuff.
Okay.
Is 12 millimeter is thin wall, which makes bending a bit more complicated.
Oh, it's probably a lot easier to like.
That 1 millimeter makes a huge difference for bending.
Okay. So and that's something, especially since this. I mean, Jay's got experience with that, but I want to get in there and do some myself. So we might want to go with something that's a little bit more friendly towards possible mess ups or whatever.
The last thing you should probably keep in mind with fittings, though, especially with acrylic, is you have a choice you have to make. Are you going to bend it? If you do, you need to buy a bending kit. Mm-hmm. If you're not going to bend it, then you need to take into account all the extra elbow fittings you're going to need to make the bends.
So you can go straight acrylic tubing and then use fittings for the bends if that's
right, which is actually very quick and easy to install. You just cut it down to length and then use dual 90 fitting that has female ends on both sides that you put 2 more acrylic fittings into and then just plug them in and there's your bend.
Okay.
It looks a lot more cluttered that way. It actually looks good on some builds. But bending is always the cleanest look and cheapest.
Depends how utilitarian you want.
If you decide to do the fitting bending method, expect your fittings to run you $300, $400, $500 depending on the fittings.
Yeah, that's plus every time you need to angle the direction, then So I think I'm gonna go. I think we're gonna bend. We're gonna bend the acrylic. I kind of like that idea a little bit more. Plus you save on the fittings that way. Right. And excellent. That pretty much wraps up like kind of the parts I think that we're going to go with here. We need to get this all added to the cart and itemized and all that kind of thing, and we need to count this up. So don't worry, guys. I know this video has been very long, but trust me, there's more to come since this is just the initial kickoff for this build. But I told you at the beginning, and thank you for coming to the end of the video. If you listen to this at the beginning, watch the whole thing. I have a very important question for you. Now, Jay's build right now, his primary system, has a really cool code name. I was trying to think of a code name for my build that also sounded equally badass. So I was thinking of Possum Factory. What do you think? Possum Factory?
Project Fu Manchu.
Project Fu Manchu? Because
that's like your thing.
Like this here? That's not a full Fu Manchu. The Fu Manchu you got to have going all the way around and everything.
Project Soul Patch.
It's Project Soul Patch? Perhaps.
Project names are always the hardest.
You know, like Possum Factory, Skunk Works, Possum Factory.
I guess, but you're.
I thought that was hilarious, but no, I'm kidding.
But I like Lockheed Martin, so that's why I did that. So the case looked very, very stealth fightery with the color.
Yes, and it made perfect sense for that build. So my build is black and white overall. We've talked about a lot of the components that are going in here.
So Skunk Works could have worked for you.
That's exactly what I was saying earlier. Skunk makes sense for that. But no, we need a name for this build. I haven't decided on one yet. I have a few ideas kicking around, but I think you guys might, with the power of your combined minds and intellect, maybe could think of something that really fits for this build. So consider the parts that are in here. Consider that we got Fractal stuff. We got Gigabyte video cards. We got EK components going in there. ASUS motherboard. Epic build.
Project
black
Mosh
and
Pit.
white.
It's like Project Mosh Pit going on.
Mosh Pit. I like that we have a nice blend of manufacturers going on in this build too. I always kind of like taking multiple things.
I always like to name it though based on kind of the aesthetics.
Okay.
Right. So like for me, things that come to mind are not like, I don't know if you're trying to go with like funny, but like for me, like Project Monochrome seems kind of well, it's black and white, right?
Monochrome.
There's gonna be very little color in there.
The names that I think appeal most to me are the ones
Project
that have
Chromatic.
the ones that have dual meanings. I like it to have multiple, like you can look at it different ways.
Right.
So that is what appeals to me.
Project Autochromatic.
So guys, let me know in the comments section down below what you think I should name this build, because an epic name would be cool. And then I thought I had another question I was going to ask. We already asked that earlier in the video, right? We asked for some opinion on something. It's been a while. This video, if you guys can't tell, has been longer than originally planned, so thanks for sticking through us the whole way. I hope if you're thinking about building a water-cooled system that you've learned a little bit from this build. Leave us your water cooling questions as well, because we're going to be doing, like I said, more videos following up on this. And then eventually, Jay has told me that he will be happy to come by and lend his hand when we actually do the full assembly, but that's still
especially if
a
you're
little ways off.
especially if you're going to bend.
Especially if we're going to bend.
You'll need a lot of extra pipe.
I need help and extra pipe, and if Jay's good at one thing, it's providing lots of extra pipe.
Well, there was that one Tech Talk episode.
We'll end on that note, though. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Subscribe to Jay's channel if you're not already. It's JayzTwoCents. Thank you for watching this video. We'll see you all later.
Bye.